And good morning from Bonaventure Cemetery, everyone. This is Shannon Scott with Grave Talks, and hope everyone's doing great out there. We are here with veteran author, poet Lonnie Ellis in Bonaventure Cemetery. Good morning, Lonnie.
Good morning.
Great to see you and also to meet you. Thanks for being here today.
It's good to be here.
We understand that you have a little poetry for us today as we kind of arrived at some of your favorite monuments out of your favorite plots.
I do. I have two poems I'd love to read.
That's great. Well, let's take a little walk together and get to know Lonnie Ellis, the poet, Lonnie Ellis, the person. And Lonnie, tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
All right. I was born in Savannah, Georgia in 1970. Had a fairly medium-sized family, 6 siblings altogether. And my parents got divorced early in my life, so spent most of my life being raised by a single father.
Wow.
You don't hear that often. You usually single mother, but I had a single father. And,
very true.
He was a wonderful dad, taught us a lot, and joined the Marine Corps right out of high school and married a couple years later.
Wow.
After coming back from the Gulf War, and then got out of the Marine Corps and moved to Illinois.
Wow.
Started a family.
That's amazing. And so a father yourself, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 children.
Amazing, amazing. And how old are they?
My daughter is 29, my oldest son is 27, my youngest son is 10.
Wow.
And I also have 2 granddaughters who are 10 and 3.
Hey, that's amazing. That's a rich life. You're a blessed man.
Extremely blessed.
Now, so tell us a little bit about and you also, you transport young military people, or how did you describe that to me?
I do. I transport young men and women to Jacksonville, Florida, or up to Columbia, South Carolina to join the military. So we take all the branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Occasionally we get a Coast Guard.
Wow.
National Guard.
So you're definitely kind of in it for life, in a sense.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. And so how does that factor in your mind, all that life experience with becoming a poet, becoming an author?
Well, to be honest, when I was in high school, I loved to write poetry.
Okay.
And it was one way to try to impress the young ladies. And then after I got married, I got away from it. But after I went back and joined the Army, after my divorce, I found that, and I went to Iraq, I found that poetry was an easy way to relax after coming back from a mission. And that's when I got back into poetry. And it's just taken on a whole new level recently.
Now, am I correct in thinking that you have authored a children's book?
I have. I authored a children's book titled The Gift.
The Gift. And
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
The Gift is a story about a classroom in the 1940s. It's during Christmas time. It's snowing, blizzard almost, and they can't go out to play. So the teacher, Mrs. Noel, kind of persuades them to write a story. And the story, she titles it The Gift. And she invites the students to give the world a gift. And there's 3 rules. 1, the gift can't cost anything. 2, it can't be a material possession. And number 3, once given, it has to make the world a better place. So these young men and women start raising their hands, and they start saying, I'll give the world joy and happiness and this and that. And the last kid stands up, and I'll give the world love, love being the greatest gift of all.
Wow. That's a beautiful theme.
It really is, and I wasn't intending to write a children's book.
Okay.
But a friend of mine had asked me to write a story that she could read to the children in her unit in the military for their Christmas party. She wanted something that had never been told. And I was blessed with that story in about 45 minutes. Reread it, thought that's actually pretty good. And so I decided to send it to a publisher, and thinking that it might get turned down 3 or 4 times, but the first one yanked it up pretty quickly.
Wow. And Lonnie, where can, let's say people are interested in The Gift, find that book? Where's that available?
They can find it on Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon.com, or they can actually get it from christianpublishing.com as well.
Wow. And, Lonnie, we're kind of here near the American Legion plot for the World War veterans. And if you don't mind, when you see a plot like this or a section like this with veterans. I mean, what are some of the emotions that come up? What are some of the thoughts and feelings that, arise in you as a person, as a veteran?
Patriotism comes to heart right away. Sacrifice. These young men and women that serve our nation today and in the past, and those who will serve in the future, give so much to this great nation of ours. And they give us the opportunity to live freely. And it's such a blessing to know that there are men and women out there who will do that. And it's an even greater blessing to know that there are men and women out there raising their children with that kind of mindset to sacrifice and give back to the country.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, let's continue. We're still enjoying Bonaventure Cemetery this morning, everybody, and really honored that Lonnie could be out here today and invite us to be a part of some of his devotional poetry, which are new writings, and one of which we'll experience soon from you, or have you read for us, is devoted to a very famous statue in Bonaventure called Little Gracie. And would you mind telling us a little bit about the inspiration or some of your first moments with Little Gracie and things of that kind?
Well, I got to know a little bit about Little Gracie when I first read the book, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, and then I watched the movie.
Okay.
And when I moved back to Georgia after joining the Army, I came out here and I visited the cemetery, and I got just enamored with her. She's just a beautiful, charming little girl.
Yeah.
And I believe she epitomizes all that is Southern charm.
Interesting.
And I just love her. And I come every year. I try to get out here 2 or 3 times, and it's the first place I like to visit.
And what do you think about the notion of the innocent side or the eternal child idea? Does some of that too play into your adoration or admiration?
Well, I think it's tragic, of course, that children die young. It's one of the saddest things in life. And but there is that aspect that they will forever be young.
Absolutely.
And,
that's really well said.
That's a beautiful sentiment in itself.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. When did you really first start writing?
I guess I really first started writing back in 2010 when I was in Iraq.
Okay.
That's when I started getting into poetry a lot.
And who were some of your inspirations? Like, who did you really admire as a writer or a poet?
A.E. Houseman actually wrote a poem titled To an Athlete Dying Young. I read that in high school, and I just thought it was an absolutely beautiful poem. We also had been encouraged to learn the poem A Passionate Shepherd to His Love, which we had to recite to a classmate, a female classmate. Our classmate then had to in turn recite the poem, The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd. I love both pieces of poetry so well that I actually memorized both of them, and I recited The Passionate Shepherd to His Love in class, and I was able to help the young lady remember her lines as she recited The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. So in Iraq, when you were starting to fiddle with some writing, what kind of stuff were you writing?
I was writing basically stuff about military life, about the separation soldiers and their family members go through when soldiers are deployed. I was writing some stuff from back home, things that inspired me. Yeah. Helped bring me down from that stressful level that you go through once you come back from a mission. Yeah. So it just varied, but a lot of it was war related, military related. Absolutely. And have you published some of that work? I did. I published much of that in a book titled War and Peace and Poetry. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that book, because I've seen the cover, but admittedly have not read it. You read it yet? Right. War and Peace and Poetry is a book that I published in 2010. It's a great title, by the way. It is. I kind of played on Tolstoy there, and the love for poetry, and actually the title poem is titled War and Peace and Poetry. Yeah. But there's stuff in there that I dedicated to my children. Sure. Things that I dedicated to the young men and women that I was serving with. Wow. Just a really interesting book.
Wow. And how have other, let's say, fellow veterans reacted to that or responded?
I've had some good response.
Yeah?
I have one friend that periodically calls me or contacts me almost on a yearly basis, telling
Yes, sir.
me I was going through a rough time and I picked up your book and read it, and
Wow.
it really helped.
And that's really
pull me through.
that's really the reward, isn't it?
It really is. You know, if you can touch one life in this world, it's a ripple effect. And so I touch this young man's life once a year, and that's all you have to do to make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
So if I can touch his life, he might be able to go out and touch one or two more, and those two might go out and touch three or four more, and just sending that ripple right on across the pond, and we can make the world a more beautiful place.
Well, you have the heart of a poet, sir, if you don't mind me saying. You definitely do. I love it. Well, so, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived to Little Gracie's plot, and she looks just beautiful out here in the morning. And this is Little Gracie Watson, of course. For those that don't know, she just died shy of her 7th birthday in 1889. And then the famed sculptor John Walls of the Gettysburg battlefield fame and other places added the statue here about a year and a half after her passing. But if you don't mind, Lonnie, we'll get you here in front of the plot. And
All right.
and I know you've got a brand new poem, everybody. It's kind of a world premiere, I suppose, in a way.
It is.
And what's the title?
Little Gracie.
Little Gracie it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll let Lonnie orate for us.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Little Gracie, sitting so poised for all the world to see, and of those who visit this Elysium, most come to gaze adoringly on thee. Little Gracie, beloved hostess, at Savannah's Pulaski House Hotel, in death you still welcome guests, only on a much grander scale. Little Gracie, precious cherub, so meek, so gentle, so mild, dearly adored by dignitaries and guests, and others whom you beguiled. It seems unfair that death would call while you were but a child, but to you an earthly paradise has been given that you might run free and wild. Little Gracie, so pure of heart, the garden belongs to you. Bask in the midday sun, dance on the moonlight beams, and bathe in the morning dew. From sleep awaken at dawn's first breaking, as heaven's staircase slowly descends, become one with the day in frenzied play until light, time in the horizon upends. Frolic merrily upon the winding paths as you pirouette from stone to stone. Float gently on a soft warm breeze, knowing you'll never be alone. Call on the cosmos mariner. Seek his bench and take respite upon it. Ask of Mercer a tune, and listen as Aiken recites you a sonnet. Thank them for their indulgence as you finally bid them adieu. Assure them you'll visit again tomorrow, when tomorrow is made anew. Make haste, don't waste, for how quickly time doth pass. Though rivers are replenished and seasons come again, there's no turning of the hourglass. The falling tempts the setting sun, the chill lingering in the shade. Speak to an ending, say day is almost o'er, invite you home by way of the promenade. Little Gracie, who angels watch over, hold to the light of the moon, for darkness finds no place in its presence, and daylight returns so soon.
Wow, that is a stunning piece of work. Just absolutely beautiful, Lonnie. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for the invite.
And I think what we'll do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to take a little break here and come back with a second kind of feature with Lonnie here momentarily as we cross the cemetery to another gravesite destination. So I hope that's okay with you, Lonnie. And we'll join you again in a few moments. So thank you for your beautiful poem. And I apologize one more time on the title for folks of that.
Little Gracie.
It's Little Gracie. That's as pure and as simple as it needs to be. Thank you. Hey everybody, this is Shannon Scott once more. We're back here in Bonaventure in our part 2 interview discussion, introduction to the poet, author, veteran, Lonnie Ellis. Lonnie, good to see you again. We took a little break. The humidity's starting to get to us. But we're back here at the Johnny Mercer plot with Lonnie, and Lonnie's a big fan of Johnny Mercer's music, and so I thought it would be a nice place for us to start. And so tell us a little bit about, I guess your love affair with music, or maybe your admiration for Johnny somewhat.
Well, I love all things Savannah. I love all things Georgia. I guess I'm strange in that when I realized somebody came from Georgia and they made it big, there's just a overwhelming sense of pride and happiness that we have these Georgia boys and girls out there proving that we have something wonderful and beautiful to offer. And Johnny Mercer offered as much to the world from Georgia as anybody ever has.
Wow.
So I just really admire his music and who he was as a gentleman and a Savannian, fellow Savannian.
Wow. Well, that's a beautiful summation. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I really feel like Johnny, all heroes, let's say, are flawed. I think sometimes anymore it's almost like you can't be an admirable person with flaws, but truly I think that's what makes sometimes the heroes even greater, is that they overcame triumph, or rather adversity and triumph. But they were people, they were human beings, But I mean, Johnny and his many family members, so worth admiring. But well, let's take a little walk down to Conrad Aiken's plot, because I know that for your second devotional poem to the cemetery today, which is called Obonaventure.
Obonaventure.
Obonaventure, and tell us a little bit about the inspiration for Obonaventure.
Well, in 2011, I had just returned from Iraq, and I was talking to a dear friend from Utah, and she was making plans to come visit for St. Patrick's Day and the parade and for Savannah. And while we were chatting on Facebook, I just got an inspiration to write Obonaventure.
Wow.
And was laying there in bed chatting with her, and then jumping back to the page there so I could write, and drinking a little Jack and Coke for inspiration and to free my mind and come up with something just I think is absolutely beautiful.
Well, of course, Conrad Aiken and his wife, oh gosh, her name just went in my brain. Why am I missing it? But Conrad Aiken and his wife, Mary Hoover Augusta, thank you. It's kind of a tongue twister a little bit, but they used to come out to Bonaventure in the 1960s and maybe early 70s, but they were famed for having cocktail hour here in the family plot among his parents' graves, and they reportedly drank martinis twice a day, 6 days a week. I think Sunday was the only day off, but they would come out here at noon to have martinis in the family plot, and then also at sunset they would have martinis to close out their day, and that's how they enjoyed their artist retirement. And allegedly they had a conversation with each other that one day their gravestone should be a bench so that others could enjoy the same festivity or endeavor of having a cocktail. And so that was legal, I think, until 1980, when that was outlawed. Apparently there was some big party out here that left the cemetery a little littered up, and the new guy in charge had to show he was sheriff and put the lockdown on that. But yeah, until 1980 you could legally drink, in Bonaventure, which I think is interesting, and maybe in Conrad Aiken's plot as well. But Lonnie, why don't we come on down here to Conrad? And I think a good place to hang out is probably right here in front of the plot. So you mentioned that Conrad Aiken had gotten the Pulitzer Prize in 1929 for his poetry works. Is there anything specific about Conrad Aiken that stands out to you?
Oh, I don't know that there's really anything specific. I have read some of his poetry and I like it. I think he was a wonderful poet. Just again, like Johnny Mercer, he's a good old Savannian. He's just a homegrown boy, and he made it big, and he represented us all very well, and brought a lot of fame and to Savannah.
Absolutely.
Just that's something people ought to take more pride in. Those people that go forth from our communities and do well, we really ought to aspire to be more like them and hold them up as role models and examples for our youth to let them know that they can be somebody, and they can come back home and they're going to be well respected and remembered for years and years to come.
And that is, in a sense, one of the great roles that cemeteries play, like Bonaventure. They're kind of these repositories of such souls, and then also institutions of learning, which I feel like we should always stay in touch with. I mean, of course, I'm a Taphophile, you're a Taphophile. That's not necessarily the overall contemporary culture, but at one time that was very much of the Victorian culture. I mean, you were always out here in the cemetery, staying acquainted with, let's say, and I hate to say the dead, but you know, these people that did achieve so many things across the board. So I think that's a great statement about you know, the significance of those who have you know, gone out there in the world, like you said, and have achieved great things. To come home, you know, to be buried and all that. So, Lonnie, do you feel like this is a good place to reveal your next work, Obonaventure?
Yes, I'd love to read it here for the audience. It's a beautiful piece of poetry, I believe.
Well, anytime you're ready.
All right. Obonaventure. O Bonaventure, sweet Bonaventure, perhaps you shall be my eternal resting place when the light fades from my eyes and my voice no longer causes an echo. If so, I do hope that thou wouldst receive me with the dignity befitting a king. I should like to lie beneath your live oaks, standing so tall and picturesque, as they stretch forth their arm-like limbs in continuous praise to nature and the Creator, and admire the morning dew as it drips from your mossy hair. You are truly a prelude of paradise that is heaven, though the winding paths you offer are not paved with gold. O Bonaventure, sweet Bonaventure, though I have gazed upon your many marble and granite monuments, so ostentatious in their splendor, and though I am moved by their grandeur as both the sunlight and moonlight glistens across the surface, where epitaphs forever shall exclaim the nobility and fame of those who have returned from whence they came, I shall not seek such an equally aesthetically pleasing memorial, for the venue which is you, O Bonaventure, shall fulfill my need. O Bonaventure, sweet Bonaventure, the paradox of life and death you offer to all who enter your hallowed grounds is wonderfully mysterious. In life, I seek to find solitude on the bench of the cosmos mariner, and listen intently to the birds as they hum a sweet refrain of lazy bones. And if I am remanded to the earthly realm in death, well, then in death I shall like to do the same.
Wow, that gave me chills. I think Bonaventure greatly honored, your native community of Savannah also greatly honored, Lonnie. And right here in front of Conrad Aiken, who I think is also smiling from the ether at your great work. So I hear Conrad sharing his gratitude. You'll see there on the bench in the grave, the site, we have some poetry left on the bench, copies of O Bonaventure by Lonnie Ellis. And so for anybody that might want to come out here today and pick up a signed copy, just head over to the Conrad Aiken bench and you'll find a stack of them there. But as Lonnie asks respectfully, please only take one copy per customer. But I think it's great, just as a tribute, Lonnie, that you have placed some of your poetry for the world to be received by others. So anyway, Lonnie, it's been a real honor to spend some time with you today, get to know you a little bit. I know our audience is grateful, so really just can't thank you enough.
I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's been a wonderful day, very pleasant morning. It's a privilege to get to know you, and any opportunity to come to Bonaventure and be with these wonderful people, these precious souls, is an opportunity I'm going to jump at. So thank you for the invitation.
Likewise, and really appreciate your generosity here today. And let's do it again.
I'd be glad to.
All right, everybody. Shannon Scott signing off. Have a blessed weekend, and make it poetic.